Hello, Mark.
Hello.
We are going to do a little interview, an interview with an expat, because you worked as an expat in the past. For the start of the interview, can you introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, certainly. I'm Mark Relikska. I worked as an expat for the General Motors Group. The company was EDS, but specifically I worked for the components division for General Motors. It's Delphi Automotive Systems. There was a company that worked worldwide to deliver components for all the car manufacturing companies of General Motors and also outside there. And I was assigned to work as an ERP specialist, meaning Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, or the classical business systems that is used to run a manufacturing company. And that goes from financial systems, manufacturing systems, assembly systems. And the objective was to make a just-in-time plant in one of the factories of General Motors Group. It was the first implementation, and that was in Ireland, Dublin, where I worked as an expat. Before, I have done also international assignments in other factory plants of General Motors, but that was on a ad hoc basis, on request basis. But in Ireland I really went as an expat for 2 years and a half, and that is a different construction than, of course, just the international assignments.
Okay, great. At what age were you when you started working as an expat?
As an expat, well, internationally I started at 26 working on international assignments, but really my expat experience was I was about 30 years.
20 years, okay. Did you have a family at that time?
Yes, I had a family. I was just married. I'm married at the age of 29, and the discussion on traveling abroad was coming quite sometimes on the table, but it never materialized until the moment I got the opportunity to go to Ireland, and so that was then, yeah, that was a discussion which, and I come back to that later in one of your, I guess one of the discussions we will have, but it is important that you discuss this then, of course, with your family. And when you are young and you have no family, no boundaries or whatever, then it's easier to take this decision to start as an expat.
Yes, I take it that your family did not move with you?
Well, my family, I was married, so my wife, she was interested, but she was not so keen and fond about it. And so initially she did not move immediately together with me, but she came afterwards, after a couple of months. And then she also came to Dublin, Ireland, where I lived. I was to say, as an expat, I had then a contract of 2.5 years, and that you have to fulfill. So once you sign a contract as an expat, and that is important to know, you have to execute that contract. You cannot say, okay, now I change my mind or whatever. No, you have to finish your contract, because it's a binding contract. An expat contract is a binding contract.
Okay. On the next subject of living abroad, when you moved there, who were the first people that you came in touch with? Were it locals, or were you introduced to other expats, and did you live together?
No, not in my case. I was not really introduced to other expats, because I was one of the few, in fact, who went there. And this was also because at that time it was new in Ireland that people from abroad were attracted to work in Dublin. But at that time in Dublin there was a government program to attract international people to start up new projects and new companies. And that's why there were not many expats. So the people I met initially first was the country manager, of course, of EDS and General Motors Europe, and then of course the finance director and the HR director. Because one of the things is when you go into an assignment as expat, so the first discussion is of course your contract. Your contract changes, so you will have to pay taxes locally, and so you have to make sure that your arrangements are okay on a financial basis. You also get a housing and you get a living allowance, and so all these things must be arranged before you start. And that is a key message I want to give. Is very important when before you start even to accept this assignment, make sure that all your contractual arrangements are okay, that you are satisfied with them, and also that all these things of living allowance, housing, arrangements for your spouse is there as well, that when she comes over that she has something to do, yeah, and that you have a house where you can live together with, of course.
Mm. So did you live in a community, or did you just live in the city?
I lived in the city, but it was and that is typical for, well, typical I wouldn't say, but in most conditions, when you live as an expat, you live in good housing conditions. You don't live in a dangerous neighborhood. Although the factory I worked was not a very safe environment, but my living environment was a very safe environment. In fact, was the ambassador environment. But I had no contact or no network at that time with other expats.
Okay. The next subject is working abroad. Was it a logical step in your career to take to the next level to become an expat?
In my case, maybe, well, because I initially chose for the company EDS, which is EDS for General Motors Group worldwide, because it's an international company, and I knew when I worked there, I will, at a certain moment of time, I will have the opportunity to go and work internationally, but also to work as an expat. And that for me was a choice that was made. So evidently it was a logical step that at a certain point in time I would have this opportunity to go there.
Okay. Was it financially interesting as well?
Yes. There you have to see it. Like I said, it's a change of your contract. In most cases, of course, because they have to attract, not a lot of people want to do this, to work as expat, because never forget, you leave your social environment, you leave your hometown, you leave your home country, so they have to do something to make it attractive to you. And that's why they give you good conditions to live, and also good financial conditions, that you say that you have no worries about, just because they know when you are there you have to work a lot. The work is very demanding, otherwise they wouldn't ask you. You don't.
Of course.
They don't ask you to work abroad to do the same job that you could do in your domestic country. So it is a challenge for you, but also a challenge for the company. They expect a lot of you, but they give you compensation to this, and that can depend. It can depend in certain advantages that you have, and also that can depend in your salary increase you have. And very important is, and there's a difference when you work as expat, is a big difference in which country you work. If you go and work in a country that has economically in a different situation that your home country, then that is automatically compensated. That's due by law almost, that you have the same living standards. But if you go into a country where you have high living standards, then it's possible that you're going to have to pay more taxes afterwards, or benefit. It depends really, and that is something that you negotiate at the moment you sign your contract as an expat, because at that time you still have financially, you still have possibility of negotiations at that time, and what you want or you don't want, and what you accept and what you don't accept.
Okay. When you were working in Ireland, did you notice a great difference in work ethic or in how people treated their jobs? Was it like in your own country?
Each country is different, so of course you have to adapt and first learn very fast on how people are and how they run their jobs and how they work on a day-to-day job, how flexible they are or not flexible they are. And that is part of also a key message is you have to be very adaptive and absorbative to see okay what's happening and react to that. But you know you're gonna live there, so you're gonna have to adapt to the local culture. But in Ireland where I was, it was quite easy to adapt because Irish people are very nice people, very friendly people, very helpful, but close, very closed people. But once they know you, they are very open and very. It's easy to work with them. Yeah.
Okay. The next subject is about adapting abroad. How, like you talked about, how you change who you are as a person in perspective of the country that you are working in. So the main question here is: did you feel at ease when you were away, or did you have this feeling of missing the home front?
Yeah, that is of course different for every person who goes to work as an expat. I personally, I had no problem with that because from my youth, or very youth of birth, I've been, let's say, moving around and the world almost, and my father was an expat in Africa, in Zaire, for 20 years, so I spent all my childhood in Africa.
To come to the conclusion of the interview, what would be your advice to young people that start working as an expat?
I would certainly advise every young person who have the chance and the opportunity and the willingness to do this, I would certainly advise it. It makes you richer as a person, gives you a broad experience, you learn different mentalities, cultures, and it makes you richer as a person. That is my main conclusion. There's one side is important to it. It's not a free lunch. Going as an expat, it's a change of life. It's a change of life you used to be. So meaning, and especially when you come in a situation where you have a lot of social contacts, you have families, when you have a wife, when you have kids, and there's more as all these components are there. It makes much, very complex just to make the decision going for an expat. Mm-hmm. But even then, if it is always possible, and you can must come to a consensus to everybody and to yourself to do it. But it's certainly a recommendation to do it. And if you have family to do it, and that's one big recommendation I have, you can do it. I have other families who have done it, but you have to do it as a family. You go into it and you do it together, and you make the best of it together. But it's certainly a very rich experience to yourself, to your career, and to your life.
Okay. And you personally, would you do it again?
Absolutely. If I would have a family that I could say that I could do it and do a new experience somewhere, and even doesn't matter at a certain time or a certain moment when you've done this a couple of times, you just want to learn and experience all these different ways of working, living, and I would certainly do it. But I wouldn't do it on my own.
Only if you could go as a family.
Yes.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you for your time, Mark.
Yes, and thank you for asking.
That's no problem.
Mm.